Let's imagine that every day we get a piece of marble that will expire after 24 hours. And within this 24-hour, what we decide to do in that day is how we will carve this piece of marble. So let's say today I'm feeling pretty good and I take this piece of marble and I carve it in ways that is very tender and loving and caring. So by the end of the day, the marble that I will have, it looks very beautiful. And each day we're given this marble. There's a blank piece of marble. So today I'm feeling pretty good. So I carve this piece and I leave it there. The next day I get another piece. I carve it and leave it there. Like any days, not all days are equal. There are some days that feel heavier than others, and there are days that rather feels brighter than others. Someday I can be in a good mood, and other days I can be heavily affected by something. Someone says something rude and it will just throw me off. And so on that day I'll carve the piece, but it has more cracks in it because I'm angry, I'm mad, so the piece that I carve doesn't have round edges. It doesn't have um, like intentional carvings in it. Like I don't care because I'm angry, so I make this piece in whatever shape and form. I just toss it there. And if we zoom out and into a month, all the carvings that I've done essentially become the small puzzle pieces that will fit together from one day to another. Because if, let's say today, um, or instead of thinking time in a sense of a linear path, time is essentially this continuous path. So 24-hour is just a time frame for a block. And we zoom out into a month is like a bigger block. So each block I carve becomes, let's say, each day I feel pretty good, it'll be a good block. On days that I don't feel good, it'll be a rough block. It has cracks and it has rough edges. And if we take a day to a month and we zoom it out to a year, and if half of the year was me being in a bad mood, the crack will be pretty big. But let's say if a month total of me being in a bad mood, the crack will be very minimal. So essentially, the bad days, as long as there are more good days than bad days, the cracks and the rough edges will not be so prominent. So essentially, carving this piece is our intention in every day. And if we, let's say, don't pay attention to the actions of every day and being intentional with every moment and what happens throughout the day, what ends up happening of the year will be the result of all those actions altogether. So whether that is intentional painting, intentional carving, it will show. If it was just chaotic, non-intentional, just actions of non-intent, it will be a piece that has no intention. So, for instance, there could be a piece of marble that has just a bunch of chips in it. Like it doesn't form into anything. It's just a bunch of holes and cracks, and it just looks like a rock that has been beat up. On the other side, it could be a piece of marble that has been formed into something. So we're talking about a year. So it could be just like a finger, for instance. And if you zoom it out, it could be into 10 year. And this finger could turn into a hand. Or bigger, it could turn into an arm. But that is only if it was intentionally carved for. Because if it was not intentional, that finger wouldn't take shape. It wouldn't manifest into something that I would want to manifest. So, for instance, if I want to manifest my desires in life, my intention would be equal to the sense that what I put my intention towards is what I will create. So, towards the end of my year, if I'm intentional with all my actions and everything I do in life, then that peace will show. It's bound to show because intended to manifest this thing, and I keep doing actions that aligns with that. So if I intend on making a finger, over time, it will turn into a finger. It might not be the most beautiful finger, but it can be just a finger. It can be, let's say, 70% finger, but that's better than 2% finger. And over time, essentially, as I develop my skills in carving and intention, it becomes stronger and stronger. So each time let's say this year, I managed to carve a finger, and through all that year of intentional actions and intentional living, going on to the next year, I begin to carve the palm, for instance. And now my experience will carry over to the palm, and I can begin to create something that's more refined. So the palm, let's say for instance, become more like 85% or 90%, because each day I refine my craft and improve my craft. So each chip and each form that I shape throughout the day will become better and better. So, for instance, let's say today I go work out, and if I have the intention of improving myself every week, then by next week I should be stronger, if not more experienced in whatever I do. I should see some kind of improvement in that. But if I worked out unintentionally, and let's say I go work out and next week there's no improvement, I don't feel any stronger, I don't feel any different, it's all the same, then I'm hitting some kind of a plateau. There's something there that needs to either be looked over again to see, am I improving or am I the same? And really, it is just a choice. If I seek to improve, then that's what I do. If I don't seek to improve, then so be it. And it really comes down to what the actions throughout the day, and if I'm able to maintain myself in a good state, then I'll be able to create a good piece. If I keep getting affected by other people, then my piece will become almost by chance. Because let's say I go to work, and the moment someone says something that affects me, and I could either let that affect me for that moment, or I can just hold on to that and let it affect me throughout the day. Really, the choice is mine to be made, because if I focus on the other person, which I cannot control, then I'm trying to control something I cannot control. But if I if I focus on something on myself, then I can control something I can't control. So the choice is still to be made, which one I want to choose. And so if I choose to control something I can control, then the piece that I will make will be in my control. In other words, my destiny will be in my control, not by chance. However, there is another component to this, that where nature comes into play. So each day the block is different. Each day the marble is not equally the same. Some days the marble are more refined. Some days it's more, let's say, grainy. So I got to be more careful and tender towards the piece because it's not an even marble. Some days it just feels easier than others because this marble piece is just happened just to be beautiful by itself, and I don't even have to do anything. I can just place it down, and then it's just a beautiful piece of marble. And in other days, the marble is just extremely hard, is really rough, and I have to put extra care and extra strength. I have to pull myself up on the boots. I don't think that's the right reference, but I just have to, let's say, work extra hard that day. Um, and it's just some days it just feels like the world is almost like sitting on top of my shoulders, and I just have to weave through that. And just like how there are storms, some days there's storms, some days there's the weather is nice, some days it's just the worst weather to exist, icy, and the road is really bad, and things like that. So not all the pieces are the same. And so some days are easier, some days are harder. But even then, being intentional towards the piece is very important, because if I'm not um, intentional with what I do with the piece, then by the end of my journey, what I have created will not be intentional. It either could be like a block of marble, or it could be a block that I create. And it could be something that I want to leave behind with intention. I'm being proud of it. I'm being happy that I was able to create this while I was here. And not only just to create a piece that I want to leave behind, but rather being playful while being here, because it's kind of like an experience that um, there's only one chance to do that. So might as well just have fun. And that's easier said than done, but the essence is in that while this piece is being carved, why not enjoy it? So in a sense that throughout the day, when I get a hard block, for instance, because there are some days that are just really rough, and I don't expect myself to be in like 100% happiness like 24/7, because that's not real. And so in some days where those heavy days do come, I'm more neutral. I don't engage with the day as much as I would on the other days. And a perfect, let's say, or a metaphor for this is kind of like, let's say the tide is really low. That means that I can run and play where there's no water. But whenever the tide begin to rise up to my neck, for instance, I wouldn't do the same exercises I would on the days that when the tide is low. So in that sense, thread the water carefully according to the day. So again, if depending on the weather condition, I will do the appropriate activity for that day. So let's say it is 150 degrees outside. I wouldn't want to go out and begin to play soccer that day because it's way too hot, and I don't think it's an ideal day to even play. So instead, I'll do some activity inside that's more cooling, for instance. So again, these conditions that alters is kind of like getting this piece of marble that would alter. Some piece again is very easy to carve, and other piece is very hard to carve. So the days that are hard to carve, just be really intentional and extra careful, because it requires more energy to carve it. Whereas the ones that is not so hard, it can be more playful. I can easily bend corners and I can easily mold it. I can easily do things to this piece that I wouldn't be able to do on the other days. So, and essentially, this whole art piece that starts with a day will eventually blend into two, and two into weeks, and weeks into months and years, and eventually, over the time of our a lifespan, it will be the piece that will be manifested or created by the creator. So, whatever that is desired to be manifested will be if the intention is consistent. So, again, let's wrap it all up. Each day, we're given a block of marble, and depending on how we carve this marble, will determine this piece. And if I'm in a good mood, it'll be a good piece. If I'm in a bad mood, it'll be cracked or has holes in it, and then it will have rougher edges, for instance. And so one day we move into a week, and then let's say half of the week was bad, half of the week was good. So half of the picture will look has cracks and it has sharp edges, while the other half is looks nicer. And we'll zoom out to 10 years. If we had more bad days than good days, then almost half of the picture will be cracked, and it will be a piece of marble that doesn't have a shape yet because it was unintentional. It wasn't intentional. If it was intentional, then it would have some sort of intent to it, and then it will form into whatever that was intended. And again, we'll zoom out to 10 years and into our lifespan. And whatever that was intended for this piece, in other words, our life, it will show towards the end of that piece. And if it was intended half of the way, half of the piece will show and the other half will not. And again, no piece is perfect. Every piece has a story. Every piece tells something. And it's not that everyone is ought to make a perfect piece. Not every piece is Mona Lisa. Not every piece is in the spotlight. Some piece is never found. And some piece is historical. So it all depends on what action has been done, and through the accumulation of all the action will create that piece. And for whatever intent that you may desire and that you may want to show, it will be the accumulation of your actions and reactions in life. So that will sum up today's podcast. And if you made it this far, thank you. And I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.